Howdy, everybody. I'm here to teach you about using our fancy schmancy centesimal frame to do addition and subtraction of decimal fractions. And so in our previous lessons, I taught you how to make your own centesimal frame. I did one on each side. So what you do is you take your one whole, you can make these out of paper, and you draw your circles, and then you take your 1/2 and you draw your halfway mark both ways, which makes your quarters. Then you take your 1/10 and you go along and you draw each 10th. See, just like that. 10th, 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 all the way around, so that you have your tenths and your quarters. Okay, so that's what you work with at your house. Here at school, we have this, and we have our beautiful fraction circles, and I'll be using those. Okay, so our first addition problem we're going to do is 1/4 plus 1/10. Now remember, in our fraction lessons, we have learned you do need to make sure your denominators are the same before you can do your addition problem. Well, we are going to use our decimal converter to turn all of our denominators into hundredths. So 1/4 plus 1/10 is the same as something over 100 plus something over 100, and it will equal something over 100. Okay, we're going to turn these into these. Okay, we're going to change our denominator. Well, let's take a look at how we do that. Okay, so first I'm going to get a 1/4. Here is my 1/4. Then I'm going to get a 1/10. Here's my 1/10. So I'm going to add 1/4 plus 1/10. Well, with my handy dandy centesimal frame, I place my 1/4 on it, and I see that it converts my 1/4 to 25 hundredths. So I'll fill in my 25 hundredths. I'll take my 1/10 and I'll convert it. Oh, now I see that 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. Now, look how cool this is. I can add my 1/10 onto my 1/4, and what does it show me? It shows me that I get to go to 35 hundredths. 35 hundredths. Now remember, we'll harken back to our fraction lessons. If our denominators are the same, all we do is add our numerators, right? 25 plus 10. That's 35. 35 hundredths is our answer. But our goal is to write this in decimal form. That means we want to use our decimal point. So 25 hundredths we've learned in all of our past lessons. 25 hundredths looks like this, right? Plus 10 hundredths, which looks like this. You've done your decimal number rule, you've been working with your decimal addition, you've learned how to write 25 hundredths and 10 hundredths. Well, gosh, put our decimal point there, and you know 25 plus 10 is 35. So we look at our first fractions, we convert them to hundredths, and then we convert them to show our decimal point. Okay, that's our first problem. We already solved it. Easy, right? let's do our next problem. I'll put these away. And we're going to do a subtraction problem now, okay? We're going to do 1/4 minus 1/10. Okay, remember we're going to convert. We want our denominators to be 100. Remember, percent means of 100. So 1/4 minus 1/10. Well, we learned that 1/4 is the same as 25/100, so we can just write that. And we've learned that 1/10, see up here, is the same as 10/100ths. Okay, so now are you seeing what I'm seeing? 25 minus 10. You should all be thinking in your head, well, that's just 15. And you would be right. 15/100ths. And let's take a look how we would do that with our decimal converter. So here's our 1/4 and our 1/10 back again. And I'm going to show you how to go backwards. So here we have 25/100ths. I'm going to lay my 1/10 on top of my 25/100ths. And we go back to the beginning of the 1/10, which is 15. Here's 10, here's 20, 15's right in the middle. You see that? I'm going back because I'm taking this much away from the 1/4. I'm going to take 1/10 away, and it puts me at 15, doesn't it? Okay. That's how we do subtraction with our decimal converters. But it's easy here too. We can do it abstractly because now we can write these as decimals. 25/100ths minus 10/100ths. Well, 25 minus 10, that's 15. Okay, we've solved 2 problems already. It was super easy, wasn't it? Let's do another one. Let's do 1/3 plus 1/8. Okay, first we need to convert using our decimal converter. I don't know if you noticed, but I have all the equivalents here that we explored yesterday, and we all wrote them down, right? So you can't even look over here and see, oh, here's 1/3. 1/3 equals 33/100ths, which is equal to 33/100ths. But we can prove it. It's fun to prove it. So if you take your decimal fractions, and remember to write the names of the decimals on your paper so that they don't get all mixed up. I'm taking my 1/3 and look, here it is, 33/100ths. Here's 30, 31, 32, 33. See? 33/100ths. So I'm going to go ahead and write 33/100ths. And we want to add 1/8. Well, here's 1/8. And let's take a look over here. What did we write down? 1/8 is equivalent to 12/100ths. And that's how we write it in decimal form. And we can always check. There it is, 12/100ths. So we're going to do 33/100ths plus 12/100ths. We know we're going to end up with a denominator of 100, but we need to add 33 plus 12. Well, this is where your wonderful addition skills come in. We just do normal addition. 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 plus 1 is 4. So our answer is 45/100ths, and we can prove it. So here is 33/100ths plus 12/100ths. Oh, and look at that, 45/100ths. Now we're going to write it in decimal form. 0.33 plus 0.12. equals 0.45. That's it. That's all we have to do. Now let's do subtraction. We're going to do the same fraction pieces. 1/8. Oops. I got ahead of myself. 1/3 minus 1/8. We can't take away 1/3 from 1/8. I have to take 1/8 from 1/3. So I'll put my 1/3 here. My 1/8 goes on top. And I take it away. Okay. So while you're looking at this, let's come over here and remind ourselves that we need to convert our denominators to 100. 100 is our denominator. And we're going to start off with 33 hundredths. We're going to take away 12 hundredths. Well, what's 33 minus 12? You all know how to do subtraction by this point. 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. Our answer is 21 hundredths. And if you can see, that's where our decimal lines up to. 21. Let's make sure this is right on the line. I need to see this white line. And there it is, 21 hundredths. Well, let's write it in decimal form, because that's our goal. 33 hundredths minus 12 hundredths equals 21 hundredths. This is a fun way to do math. All right, let's move on to our next problem. 2/5 plus 3/9. All right, 2/5 plus 3/9. This one's a little bit more tricky because we have more than just 1 in the numerator place. So we have to think about what is the decimal fraction for 1/5, and then we have to times it by 2, don't we? Our denominator will stay 100. We want our denominator to be 100 because we're using this. We're turning it into a decimal fraction. Okay, so friends, think. If we know that 1/5 is equivalent to 20 hundredths, what do you think 2/5 would be equivalent to? So here's 1/5 is equivalent to 20 hundredths. What would 2 of those be equivalent to? I'll make sure my line's up. You want to see that line. Well, 20 times 2 is just 40, right? So of course it would be equivalent to 40 hundredths. So we found our first fraction equivalent. 2/5 is equivalent to 40 hundredths because 1/5 is 20 hundredths. So 2 of those would be 40 hundredths. And then let's find out what 3/9 would be equivalent to. Here are my 3/9. Well, we know 1/9 is equivalent to 11 hundredths. So what do you think 3/9 would be equivalent to? Well, if you know your 11s, which the 11s are really fun to learn, 11 times 3 is 33. See, right there. So if we add on, if we put them all together, what would it be? Let's make sure we can see that line. So here's my 33 hundredths. Well, we're adding 40 plus 33, aren't we? And of course the denominator is 100. So 40 plus 33. What's 0 plus 3? 3. What's 4 plus 3? 7. So our answer is 73 hundredths. Let's write that in decimal form. 40 hundredths plus 33 hundredths equals 73 hundredths. Let's do our subtraction. We'll use the same fraction pieces. This time we'll subtract 2/5 minus 3/9. Well, first we're going to turn them into decimal fractions, which means we want the 100 in the denominator. I'm going to just do that with all of them. We want 100 in the denominator. So now I'm going to take these 3/9 and I'm going to scooch them out of here. I'm going to put my 2/5 right there. I can't do the same exact thing as I did before because they won't fit very well because I've got these handles. But we can get kind of close. We can see that it's going to be right around here, okay? But we can do it mathematically too. Let's do it mathematically. Well, we know that 2/5 is equivalent to 40 hundredths because we've established that. We've learned that. And we've also learned that 3/9 is equivalent to 33 hundredths. So now we just do subtraction. 40 minus 33. Because remember, we don't have to do anything to the denominator. It's just the numerator. So can we take 3 away from 0? No. We have to go next door. Remember, we knock on the door. Hello, can I borrow a 10, please? Sure. Now, this next door neighbor only has 3 10s because you borrowed one of them. So now we have a 10, and we're going to take 3 away. Well, that gives us 7, doesn't it? And then 3 minus 3 is 0. That is 7 hundredths, isn't it? 7 hundredths. Some of you this morning during our lesson was writing, you were writing this. Remember, this is 7 tenths. 7 tenths is 10 times larger than 7 hundredths. Okay, so be aware that if it's 7 hundredths, you need that 0 in the place value, in the tenths place value. All right, so now we're going to write everything as a decimal number. 40 hundredths minus 33 hundredths equals 7 hundredths. That's how we do that. All right, I'll do one more. Give you a chance to write this down, but if you need to, just pause it. You can just pause your video and you can watch it again. Okay, I'm gonna wipe this down and we are going to do 2/8 plus 1/6. Okay, let's first do our conversion. We want our denominator to be 100. All right, 2/8. Well, what do we know about 1/8? Excuse me, I knew that was coming. 1/8 is 12 hundredths. I'll take these away. Let me prove that. Let's prove that 1/8 is 12 hundredths. See, that lines up with that 12. 10, 11, 12. So 1/8 is 12 hundredths. So, but we have 2 of them. So what's 12 times 2? What's 12 plus 12? Remember, I keep exhorting everyone to make sure they know their doubles. This was why. This is one of the reasons why. If you know your doubles, it's much easier to do big math. Well, if 1/8 is 12 hundredths, then 2/8 is 24 hundredths. And what is 1/6? 1/6 is 16 hundredths. Now, some of these fractional decimals have never-ending repeating decimal numbers, but we're ignoring that for this purpose. We're not going to worry about that. Okay, so we have 2/8 plus 1/6. Here is my 6th. Let's see, what, 24. Yeah, you can see it's going a little bit over that. It's because we've got additional decimal numbers on the end. That's okay. Let's do 24 plus 16 to find out our number. Okay, all you first graders who've been learning your combinations of 10, you should see the 6 and 4, and you should go, oh, partners of 10. I know I'm going to put a 0 there and a 1 here because these are partners of 10. 2 plus 1 plus 1. Well, that's 4. So our answer will be 40 hundredths. Let's write it as a decimal. Let's write everything as a decimal. If we have 24 hundredths plus 16 hundredths, that will give us 40 hundredths. And that, my friends, is how we use our fancy schmancy decimal converter to do decimal conversions and do addition and subtraction with the fractions. All right, I hope you have fun with yours. Maybe you can make up your own problems. See how many problems you can make up and have fun with. Maybe you can give me a problem when we meet tomorrow for our check-in. Maybe you can stump me. I hope to hear from you that you have been practicing with these. All right, friends, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.